yeah, the technology-wise, I work with Java, Spring Boot, microservices, and for the backend, we use the Record database, then Jenkins, Git, CI/CD, and all these things are a few things which I work on. And other than that, I do other stuffs as well. So there was one friend of mine who was having a startup, so I was helping him out in solving a few problems. So there, I've created two applications. One is a chatbot, which was basically working on WhatsApp, and the other was Android application which I've created. So yeah, I think that is it from my about me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you are well proficient in Spring Cloud, Spring environment, like Spring Security. Which are the like tech stack you have worked on in the backend for
So
Spring?
as in backend, I work on Java, and in TCS, I was working with Spring MVC, and currently I'm working with Spring Boot mostly.
So, no, I'm asking like what are the different stack that you have worked on under Spring umbrella? There are multiple stack, right? Spring Core, Spring MVC, Spring
Yeah, Spring
Cloud,
Core I worked
Security.
on. Spring Security not worked much on it because there was a different team which was basically handling that Spring Security concept. But as in I have little bit idea about that. Then Spring Boot I have worked on. Spring MVC, Spring AOP I have read about it, and then Spring JDBC I have worked on it.
Okay. So have you worked on Spring Cloud microservices architecture, like naming
Microservice as in
services
yes, yes,
way back?
yes, yes.
So okay, good then. One. Some basic question like, can you tell me what is the different like what are the different types of IOC containers used in Spring?
Different type of not sure about that. No, not sure.
Uh, so can you tell me what is the IOC container in Spring?
Yeah, so IOC container is basically what happens is like it's used for dependency injection kind of thing. So for example, now there is one class A and wants to have an access of class B. So in this scenario, there are two ways how we can do it. One is by using directly creating an object of class B in class A using new keyword, and the second is by using IOC container. So IOC container is a place where Spring creates all the beans as in the objects of each and every component, and that objects will be placed into IOC container whenever there is a requirement of any bean. So like there is a requirement of any bean in this scenario, the class will be requesting IOC container that this is the bean which I'm expecting, and IOC container will give the access to that bean to that class. And once the work is done of that class, again the bean will be again reverted back to the IOC container. So for that we use IOC.
So what if I have an interface and two classes are extending implementing the same interface, and now I
Yeah.
plan to implement the both classes into the IC container? How will I do
Yeah.
that?
So as in we can create the component for both of them,
Like how?
and
What's the
at
easiest way to do it in Spring?
at the rate component we can at the rate component is the easiest way of how we can
But
do it.
at that component, we mostly use on, let's say it's just a Pojo. Let's say there's an interface called Bird.
Okay.
And we are implementing Parrot and Crow,
Okay.
implementing the both that same interface. And there is a common method called Fly,
Okay.
and basically it's a Pojo. So now I want to create, let's say, two object with the bird, two object with the Parrot and Crow, and put it
Okay.
into the container
Okay.
while the application starts up. How will I do that?
So for that we can actually create the bean by using like maybe by using constructor, maybe by using setter, or there can be a method which will be creating a bean for that, and it will be
Yeah, but
yeah.
is will there be an exception, or
Yeah,
it will?
so if we wanted to give an priority, if there is something like a kind of priority thing, so we can actually provide at the primary on top of that class, whichever is the primary
Are you
one.
sure? Like, are you sure? Because
Yes.
both of the classes are implementing the same interface.
Yeah, so one of them can actually act as a primary. So if that is the case,
Even if even if it's primary, the name will be the same. The
yeah,
underlying
that's
implementation will be
okay.
the same.
Yeah, that's okay. That will be
IOC container will takes only singleton, right? So
yes.
how will it be possible then? So what you are using, say, let's say the same implementation for let's say for two databases.
Yeah.
Whenever you are creating two databases, the same
Yeah.
thing happens.
Yes.
So the underlying implementation is same. It is implementing the Hibernate dialect.
Yeah.
So
So maybe
how
we
will I
can
tell
discuss about
Spring
using
to?
qualifier. We can use the qualifier keyword. By qualifier,
Yeah.
we can give that thing.
Okay. Can you tell me what is dirty checking in Hibernate?
Dirty checking, not sure about that. Not sure. Like as we have started working on Hibernate recently, so not very much sure about that.
So you have written in your CV that you have worked in Postgres.
Yes, yes.
Uh, so you have used legacy library or used Hibernate?
So we were previously working on Spring JDBC, but currently we started working on. So Postgre, I was working in TCS. There we were basically working on Spring JDBC itself, using JDBC template and everything. And currently in this current project, we started working on Hibernate. Recently we started working on Hibernate. So yeah.
Okay. Fine. Can you tell me like what is how will you implement naming directory in your like in your microservice architecture?
Naming directory, as in we can go ahead with any of the framework. It can be a Netflix OSS, or maybe Eureka or Spring Cloud can be one of them. So that will be
Hmm.
that will give us the opportunity to have that naming directory kind of thing using what we say as
How it works? Can you tell me?
so basically in this what we do is we actually that we will be sending the service name to that directory, and that according to the service name we will be getting from that directory, we will be getting the in the response we will be getting the API, like the URL and everything according to that, and it will be after that it will be communicating to that service kind of thing.
Okay, so let's say you have implemented the Eureka, and now you're in your service. You are, let's say you have the service. So the Eureka configuration is there. Now you want to call that service
Yes,
with a REST template,
yes,
but not via Eureka,
yes.
some other external service. How
Okay.
will you do that?
So I think one maybe if we are telling the REST template, one can be directly calling through API. That can be one of the way. Like we have an address for that service, so we can directly call that address
Yeah,
instead of.
and there are two scenarios,
Yes,
two service call.
yes.
One is going directly to the external service. One is going to a service that is within the Eureka.
Okay, okay, okay.
So
So
how will you manage those two calls? So for this next one, which is going via Eureka, you don't have the, you know,
yeah, so
service
if
name.
something it
How
is
it is
like
working?
Eureka, so in this scenario it will directly call through service directory what we have. If we send the service name, it will directly call that. Whether in the second scenario, we will be directly calling through the API call, and the whole we have the context and everything, the API URL, everything.
How will you, yeah, but how will you distinguish them? Because we will be using the same REST template, right? How the
Yes,
REST template will understand this will go to the Eureka. When you provide a service name, it will throw an exception. Let's
yes,
say unidentified host name.
yes. Okay,
So,
so
because you get my question, right? Because the
yes,
first, next one when you will call Eureka, it will not identify it as a domain name.
yes, yes.
So, how will you distinguish between those two calls?
So not sure about that. Not sure.
Okay. Fine. What are the different scopes, types of scopes there in Spring?
I think we have total five scopes. What I remember, one is singleton, one is prototype, one is request, one is session, and there is, I think, global is one. I'm not sure. I think yeah, global is the one.
Okay. So, have you worked on like failsafe? Do you know about failsafe architecture?
I think yes. So it is more about if there is any one of the services down in this scenario, instead of getting the request again and again, we will be directly keeping our services down, and we will show the a normal page that as of now the service is down. Please try after some time, kind of thing.
Yeah, but how will you implement that? Like,
So I think for
let's say you are
yeah,
working in a Java application.
yes,
When you are working in a Java application, so you want to route that user
yeah,
to some other URL or some other fallback URL. So may that be a static page or something, other website or something.
yeah.
How will you planning to
So,
implement that?
so for that, I think we can go ahead with this concept of circuit breaker. I've never used it, but I've
Yeah.
read about it. So, circuit breaker is a concept which we can use. There we can actually implement this all thing. Like if there is a failure, we can directly divert our request to this page, kind of thing.
Okay, give me 1 minute.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, can you tell me how many types of what is so you have worked on Hibernate, you said, but
Yes,
not much.
not much. Yes. I have a little
Okay,
bit
so
about of Hibernate, but not very good with that.
okay, the question like how will you write a custom query in let's say Spring Data JPA or Hibernate, whatever you are using.
So
Let's
if
say you are using Spring Data JPA
yes,
just for because it's much more discrete.
yes.
So when you are using a Spring Data JPA, how will you write a custom query if I ask you to run it?
So, as in we have an option of like there are predefined functions which are there. So we can use those predefined functions with a, and we have a query kind of classes where we can actually save the query as well. So on the query first on the session we will be creating the query, and on that query we will be calling the methods like submit method or save method kind of thing. So
Can you come again? I couldn't hear you. Some distortion.
so we will be creating the query object type of that query class, and in that query we will be writing our own whatever is our query, and on that same query we will be running the functions like anything like save is one of the function, or get is one of the function. So that can be the thing.
Okay. Can you share your screen
Yeah, sure.
to there will be a coding question.
Yeah, sure. I will just share the screen. I hope you are able to see the screen now.
1 minute. Yeah.
I'm not able to
Oh.
start the video again as I'm using the web window.
Yeah. So let's say I have sent you an array and
Okay.
I want to get or I want to print the elements of the array and the occurrence of each elements. And how will I do that? You have to imprint that.
Okay. So we wanted to get the occurrence of each and every.
Yeah. Write
Okay.
a method or write a method to do that.
And is it something like we have it can be only from 0 to 9, or it can be anything like above
Anything,
9?
anything. It
Okay.
can be anything, any.
Okay.
So you just have to print like, but it's an integer. So within the
Yes.
integer range.
Yeah.
So you have to print the elements and the occurrence of the number of occurrence of the element. Let's say here 4 times, 2 is 2 times, so like this.
Okay. So I have not written the method. Maybe that is not required. Yeah, I think this will work for us. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, I think this will work for us.
Okay, okay, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Just give me 1 minute. There's some other issues are going on. Just
Yeah, sure, sure, no worries.
okay. So can you tell me what is a like Hibernate proxy?
Hibernate proxy, not sure about that.
Okay. So you have worked on Spring Security, you said, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
hmm. Which is the main class we use in Spring Security to implement our custom authentication?
I think user details is the class.
No, to implement, I mean to say to implement the filter and everything in the Spring Security,
Okay.
which class we use to implement all the details, like to create the custom like URL matcher bean.
Okay.
User details is one of them, but
Yeah.
you have to put the user details somewhere.
Yes, yes, got it. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think uh, not able to recall it. Sorry, sorry. Actually, I was working in TCS. That point of time, I worked with Spring Security. As of now, here we don't have anything like that.
Okay.
But yeah,
So did you work on Angular? Like which version of Angular you have worked on?
I work with Angular JS. So
Okay.
so there I was working as in when I was working TCS, there I was having an opportunity with front end as well. Here in this application we have only back end. There is no front end kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like a basic question, like what is the, can you tell me what is the difference between local storage, session storage, and cookies?
I think local storage is something which we store on our that is on our machine. That is I think that is the local storage. Cookies are something which we store at a browser level. If we are storing anything, any data on browser level, that is a cookie storage. And session storage is something which basically when we are sending some request on our backend application at that point of time, whenever we are sending with the session ID or something, there might be some sessions which are created on our server level. So those are the session storages.
So you said that local storage is computer level. That is only we store at browser level only.
Okay, yeah.
But what is the main difference between session storage and the local storage?
Yes, so I think
You are saying why we use it,
yeah.
but what is the difference for which we use it?
So I think session storage is more about when we are working on any of this what we say as an user based thing kind of thing. If that is the approach, then we will be using session storage. Whereas in local storage is something if we are working with some multi-part files or some like that. So in this scenario, we will be storing it into some part of our application or some part of our machine. So I think that is where we use local storage.
Okay. Uh, which version of Java have you worked on?
Work on Java 7 and Java 8 mostly.
Okay, so what is the advantage of using Java 8? Like, why it is so much popular compared to
So,
other versions?
so Java 8 is more popular because of Lambda expressions, because Lambda expressions gives the usability of this reactive programming kind of thing. So that is one thing which includes
Sorry,
the
what did
function.
you say? I couldn't get you. Like, can you come
It
again?
enabled the Java programmers to use this like we are going in kind of reactive program kind of thing. For that
Are you
reason,
sure the word is reactive?
yes, I think so. Yes, I think so. Reactive programming.
It's no, no. Reactive programming was there.
Yeah.
It's still there, but Java didn't introduce reactive programming.
Okay. Okay. So
It's functional programming.
functional programming.
Want to
Yeah.
say
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
reactive is something else.
Yeah. So that lambda expressions and functional interfaces give it that feature, and it also had given us feature of stream APIs, date and time API. We do have functional interfaces, and then it also enabled us to use static and default methods into an interfaces. That also that's a good feature which we have. And also there is a concept called method reference and constructor reference in Java 8. So that is also one of the good feature which we have.
You didn't mention functional interface.
I have mentioned functional interfaces with
You
lambda
mentioned.
expressions. Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, so then my bad.
Yeah.
What is the advantage of you implementing Lambda? Like, already had interfaces.
Yes.
It was already there.
Yes.
So what's different with the functional interface that we becomes hello?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what is the difference between the functional interface and the main interface, legacy interface that we are using,
Yeah.
and how we can create a functional interface, or do we need to? Can
Yeah.
you
Yeah, so basically there is only one difference about functional interface and normal interface. That is a number of abstract methods that are allowed. So in functional interfaces we can have only one abstract method, whereas in normal interface we can have any number of it. So and the second, why we need functional interface, what is the advantage of it, is because when we have this functional programming at that point of time, we have a lambda expression kind of concept in Java 8. So previous, just take an example like one of the functional interface is a runnable interface, okay, and now we wanted to give an implementation of a run method from runnable. So in this scenario, what we need to do is we need to create a new class which will be actually implementing that interface, runnable interface, and inside that class we will be giving the implementation kind of thing, okay, but for that run method. But when it comes with the lambda expression, we need not to create a new class for that. If we just wanted to give an implementation for that run method, what we can do is we can just create the reference type of that interface, and inside that interface we can give, with use of lambda expressions, we can give the concept of like we can give the whole implementation within it. So there is like space wise, if we see, we have actually saved one of the class which is not even required now. So for that reason functional interfaces are important.
okay? Somehow, to some extent, you are correct, but
Yeah.
not the whole way.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a few of the functional interface names, like which we use most popularly?
So most probably we as in Java 8 we have, I think, four are the most popular one. One is supplier, one is consumer, one is I think one is function itself, and a supplier, consumer, function, and there is one more. I'm not able to recall the name. So
Yeah, okay, okay,
yeah,
correct. Predicate.
yeah, yeah, predicate. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. 1 minute. So, uh, did you work? So, let me give you a scenario
Yeah.
that on Spring. So, let's say I have a REST template and I want to call some other service or other some external service. For
Yeah.
that, I need to add basic authentication header.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and I am calling multiple services with the same authentication details. Let's say there are 10 to 12 authentication like service calls are there in microservice.
Okay.
What will be your approach? Like best way you, how will you code? Like just tell
Um,
me the diagram or architectural diagram.
so
How will you
yeah, I will
do that?
just repeat the question. So
Hello,
just to confirm that I have understood everything. So
hello.
hello,
Can you
hello. Yes.
yeah? Can you come again? I
Yeah,
couldn't
I
get
said that I will
first part.
just repeat the question so to be sure that I understood correctly.
Okay.
So we have total 12, like for example, we have total 12 services, and we wanted to provide an authentication for each and every them. Each of them will be passing the same authentication header into our request for each and every
Any
service.
outgoing, yeah, let's say not, the number is not important. Like
Yeah,
any outgoing REST call
yeah.
should be encoded with the authentication header, or the
Okay,
authentication header should be there.
okay,
How will you write the code, or like your approach? I want to see.
okay. So maybe any outgoing response. Okay. So what we can do is we can create a common method. Inside that method, whatever the response which we are sending, which is going out, so that that response will be taking and we will be encoding it with some of, like we will provide the API key or the secret key to that user. and by using that secret key we will be encoding that request or response with SHA 512 algorithm or SHA 256 algorithm, any of them, and
No,
then
you have to no. Then you have to call the method every time, right?
yes.
So let's say there is a new developer. There is no proper like mostly in this level there is no documentation is provided
Yes,
most of the
yes,
time.
yes.
So let's say the new developer he doesn't know like that's much more ambiguity. Is there any much more? This is a correct response you said,
Yes.
but so is always adding header manually every method. So that is also elegant.
Okay.
Yours is better than that, but there is also other elegant method ways are there by using Spring's architecture.
Okay. Okay.
Can
So
you come up with something
yeah,
like that?
sure. So in this,
We dedicatedly use a class for these things.
okay. So I think response, no, not response
Not
bot
response, the
should,
outgoing request.
yes,
Forget about the
yes, yes,
response. I'm
yes.
saying outgoing request should be wrapped with the authentication header.
Okay.
So
So
for this kind of work, we have a dedicated class where we do these things.
okay.
Have you worked with interceptors?
No, never, no.
You haven't worked with interceptors, okay? Yeah, so we use interceptor for this kind of scenarios.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So this
Hmm. Uh, okay, fine. So, in your current project, how you are? So, you have you worked on Spring Cloud config?
as in the current project we don't have that kind of architecture, because what happens is in the current project we have something like there is only one service which is going to interact with each and everything, like each and every, so just to give an overview, like we work with the wallet kind of payments, so we have around 30-35 applications for that, and each and every application will be related to one service provider. So for example, one will be related to PayPal, one will be related to the payment of phone pay, one will be related to payment of Google Pay, kind of thing. So there is one application that is payment engine, so the request comes to the payment engine, there we actually do 100 of checks on that request, and once that is done, then it is directly going toward the toward the desired whatever the payment it is for. If it is a PayPal one, it will go to the PayPal microservice, kind of thing. So here, as in, we don't have an inter communication between any of the microservices, so that is the reason we are not using Spring Cloud.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, I am done. So, have you? One more question. Like,
Yeah.
have you worked on cloud?
Yes, yes, I have a little bit experience with AWS.
Okay. So, in your current project, are you using AWS or which
Yes,
where you are
yes,
hosting your
yes,
services?
we are using AWS for that.
Okay. Okay, fine. Do you have any question for me?
Yeah, so I have two questions basically. One is, like, if I get selected, if I get the chance to work with you, what are the things, what are the roles you want me to justify, what are the things you want me to work on?
Okay. So mostly in our current project, so I don't know which project they are actually hiring you,
Yeah.
but what I know is that there's a recruitment going on for one of our retail client,
Okay.
and supply. It's the project is mostly oriented supply chain management. So the
Okay.
architecture is highly oriented message driven,
Okay.
event driven architecture.
Okay.
So oh yeah, I coming to think of it. Have you worked on Kafka,
Kafka, yes.
RabbitMQ?
Yes, Kafka
You
is
have worked on
something which,
Kafka.
yeah.
So yes, so mostly those things are there, and Spring Cloud and Spring Security is an integral part of it to implement those architecture.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should be aware of the most latest libraries that are going on in our market to support this architecture. So let's
Okay.
say if you are working on Kafka, you should not be working on Kafka template because
Okay.
there are RabbitMQ and other vendor as well. You have to work on an abstract layer. So
Okay.
you should know which kind of libraries you should use from Spring
Hmm.
to wrap that kind to support all the vendors.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, so mostly that kind of knowledge we are looking for, so that who is well acquainted with the library structure and the current like microservice architecture. And we are currently working on microservices. We are actually migrating from a legacy architecture to microservice architecture. So it's better if we get someone who has a better knowledge, working knowledge on the microservice architecture, how it
Okay.
works, how it communicates, distributed tracing, logging, everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So these things are we looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it. Yes.